Good evening. We often talk about the sacrifices that our veterans have made for their country. Tonight, we honor warriors who sacrificed more than most as we discuss overcoming amputation. Tonight's shadow box belongs to Tech Sergeant Martinez T. Terry. He joined the Air Force in 1996 with a guaranteed job as a medical technician. His career took him from Scott Air Force Base in Illinois to Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, where he worked in the nation's busiest stateside air evacuation hub during the 2003 Iraq War. He was then deployed to Qatar and Afghanistan as a medical technician. In 2011, he retrained and served 2 years as a manpower analyst at Nellis Air Force Base before taking early retirement after 17 years of service. He is currently a civilian management analyst for the United States Air Force Reserve Command at Robins Air Force Base. We honor his service. Thanks for tuning in to Veterans Voices. I'm Nathan Johnson. As we launch this show, we want to acknowledge the loss of life to 5 individuals due to the recent events in the Capitol. Each of the individuals who died was irreplaceable to those who loved them, and in this spirit, we observe these losses. Veterans Voices is a monthly television show that explores important issues that affect the veterans community. We encourage you to participate in the conversation tonight. If you would like to ask a question, call us at 925-313-1170, and we'd love to hear your question or your comment live on the show tonight. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We would love to hear from you. This evening, Veterans Voices will look at overcoming amputation. We will talk with veterans who are living with amputation and organizations dedicated to helping our severely injured warriors. First up, I would like to welcome veteran Derek McGinnis and Sergeant First Class Michael Smith to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having us on, Nathan.
Absolutely. Good to have you both here. And I know you're joining from places outside the state, Colorado and Idaho. So what a good moment for us to see your faces and have this very important conversation about veterans who are overcoming amputation. And, I served in the military, but didn't incur the injuries that the two of you had. And so I'm hoping we can start this conversation off by just getting a better understanding of what this experience is like. Derek, I know you served in the Navy and you were in Iraq in 2004. Maybe you can start us off by giving us our audience just a better understanding of your story.
Yeah, no, thank you, Nathan. Just generally real quick, yes, I had the privilege of serving in the Navy alongside our Marine Corps brother and as a hospital corpsman and sisters out there. And I got hit in 2004 and 2004 in Fallujah. So left AKA above knee amputation, multiple shrapnel wounds, shrapnel in eye, brain injury, a lot of other things. It's very poignant in that it puts life into perspective. So if anybody's coping with struggles in life, it's always reflective on just what can you do? What are you grateful for? It could always be worse. I've always said the things like even with Michael, I always thought to myself, even in the AK, gosh, I'm glad I'm not an arm amputee. And that always brought me some motivation just to reflect, not to take from his experience. But for me, I'm just glad I was an AK and I was able to have those tools moving forward and just take back my quality of life, and grateful for the tools that have been afforded to me putting back together, man, to put my leg on every day and go to work and try to show a good perspective on the journey, so.
You mentioned
that's
AK,
a good intro for me, Nate.
Yeah, there we go. We've got some pictures there to share. You mentioned being an AK above the knee, I think is what you were meaning there. So walk us through these pictures, Derek.
Yeah, so this one's, it's pretty poignant, they put us back together, give us our life-sustaining processes back. And then in the milieu and the recovery process is the future challenge. Not only do you want to walk, what else do you want to do in your life? Do you want to earn different things? This picture's from Bataan Death March, and just being able to do it. You're with a group of other veterans that are your friends, and you just commit to a goal. And alongside your prosthetist and your physical therapist and the PM&R, the team, and everybody's there with you. You just to accept these challenges, and they provide the tools. This picture is pretty poignant for me in my life. Is that it's one of my middle son Ryan, and it's supposed to just reflect the normalcy of life. You know, going to A's game or going to the Giants game, putting on your leg, and just being normal and doing what you can. But more importantly, it's a lot of people can talk and say that. Do this or act this way. For me, being with the injuries that I sustain, I'm just grateful that I can actually show that to my boys, show them what resilience is and moving forward and overcoming adversity. So hopefully that piece of that will hold on. And that last picture right there is a poignant picture in that it's going back to the milieu and the guys you're recovering with is that's my 15th anniversary of getting hit last year. And we were going back with a buddy of mine when we went to rehabilitation together, and just continue to live that dream, continue to live what you can, and use your abilities, and continue to take on challenges. And it doesn't end, keep putting on the leg, keep moving forward. So really quick intro on my journey, man. And I can tell you some other specifics later too.
Yeah, we'll dive into this a little bit further. Thanks, Derek, for getting us going. Michael, otherwise known as Dream Chaser, get us started in understanding the background of your story.
Yeah, so coincidentally, it's like Derek said, after losing my arm, going through rehab in San Antonio at Bamsey, I heard several people always tell me that I almost rather have no legs than lose an arm, because of how intricate it is. So it's kind of funny that Derek says that, but like Derek, I have a couple of combat tours, and me, unfortunately, I came home to recruiting, and I was on my motorcycle, and a lady was texting and driving and just being negligent. And, she hit me. And when she hit me, it tossed me over the guardrail on the highway, and I was struck by another vehicle. The running joke in the military, no matter what branch you're in, is, we tease each other's perspective branches, but I made it a vow that particular day not to ever make fun of the Navy or the Army, particularly the Navy, because if it wasn't for a Navy corpsman who happened to be from Kentucky, who was traveling home, she saw the entire thing, and she stopped and saved my life. So I wouldn't be here today without that young lady who stopped and saved my life. So it's just funny how things happen. I didn't lose my arm right off the bat. It was severed severely. To the point where it was severed, but they tried to put it together, and I became a limb loss or a limb salvage, and just that experience by itself, it was just I don't think I would ask anybody to go through that, even my my worst enemy. But similar to like Derek, with him being an AK and me being above the elbow, our challenges are very different than what it would be if we were below the knee or below the elbow. So, there's a lot of complications that comes with amputation at this level. I'm probably sure Derek had other specific problems as well. But for me, I ended up having kidney failure while I was sitting on my couch because of how high this is, and because of the infection seeping into my body. And it's just I tell people all the time, like, this was the easy part. Losing my arm was the easy part. It was overcoming the kidney failure, being on dialysis, and almost checking out, being a soldier, and not getting injured in combat. It was when I got home due to somebody else's negligence. So but Derek, I always have one arm up on you, bro, no matter what.
Well played. You got me for sure. And going back to just those complications, just like Michael was saying, the amputation is very visible for the society to see as a whole, but the whole underlying things that happen in the phantom limb pain, phantom limb sensation, heterotopic ossification, some that's excessive bone growth, the mental health. At what point do you want to decide to move forward and recover? What does that look like? And there's so many modalities at play, and between, hanging out with Michael and therapy, or Manny, as you'll see later, and just challenging each other with this banter, as well as, all right, that motivator can do it, so I got to make my appointments and keep doing it. And you get to the point, there was a viewer that sent a question on at what point, and you make the commitment. And I think a lot has to do with, as you'll see later on from some of the other service organizations, that people have faith in you. The infrastructure is established, and then somebody comes up to you while you're in a wheelchair or you're in the ICU and says, hey, you want to go run the Marine Corps Marathon? They don't look at you as like a disabled individual. They look at you as you can do this, and you're afforded that chance. And you have to make that choice to take it and move forward and work with the processes and, try to help your fellow veterans alongside you that are going through the recovery process, So there is a lot of background that goes into it. So, but thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If I can ask just as a follow-up, and I want to invite our audience too to be a part of this conversation. Derek mentioned we already had a question from our viewers, and we want you to chime in the conversation as well. Ask a question, leave a comment, either on Facebook or call in or leave us an email. Both of you mentioned how important other people were in this recovery or in saving your life. What did it take, though, for you to get to a point in which you didn't see yourself as disabled or as an amputee or as someone who couldn't accomplish the things that you had accomplished before the injury?
Well, I'll tell you specifically for me, and I'm pretty sure Derek can attest to this as well. There's a point. There's like this specific turning point in your life, right, where you're doing what you do on a daily basis. Like if it's me tying my shoes, or if it's Derek running or doing a baton death march, like these are things that we do. This is our everyday normal life. The turning point for me was I was in Foot Locker trying on some shoes, and the guy just handed me the box, and everybody turned around and looked at me like, okay, well, how's he gonna do this? And I started tying, like I tied my shoes with one hand, and this lady came up to me, and I never forget, like, was hysterically crying. And I just remember like her saying, like, I've seen you laugh, I've seen you joke, I have not one time seen you make an excuse since you've been in here. Like, you operate as if nothing is wrong, and you're tying your shoes. She was like, I don't have nearly going on in my life what you do, and here you are in public with no arm and acting as if everything is okay. And I just remember I didn't even know this lady in San Antonio, Texas, and we're both crying, snot bubbles and all, in the middle of Foot Locker in the mall. And I just remember that was like a turning point. That was a click for me. Like, man, whether I know it or not, whether I'm trying to inspire or motivate somebody or not, like just my actions, me keeping my head up, me continuing to live my life and pick up the pieces and continue to move forward is a driving force for so many other people. And this was years late, like this was years ago. And I've taken that one piece, and I've taken that and I've moved on and I've moved forward. And, just like Derek, accomplishing great things. And by the way, Derek, I ran that Marine Corps Marathon with you. I didn't meet you, but I ran it last year because we have the same shirt. And it's funny that I see the picture, but I was there. I went with Team Semper Fi Fun, which is pretty dope, right? Like, I was looking at that picture like, man, I had the same shirt. Wait, that was last year. So yeah, we did the Marine Corps Marathon together, bro.
See, and that's what it's all about. It's a small world, just like your poignant moment that you're talking about. Those moments, they hit you on the soccer field with the youth in the community or whatever. You're just living your life well, and you're just showing, you're just doing, I see it as a perspective. You're on your deathbed and you got a chance at life, and all of a sudden everything tastes a little bit sweeter. And then from what you're saying, even just like the butterfly effect, right? You just impacted that whole person's life, and that's trickled on forever, So those moments are uplifting. You don't realize it. You're not trying to do it. You're just living your life, but it's extremely powerful. So I appreciate you sharing that, Michael. Well done.
Yeah. So Derek, I want to ask you a question, Derek, since we're, we can kind of freelance and do what we want.
Yeah.
So for me, me losing my arm was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. When I speak, when I get opportunity to go speak to children or organizations, or when I'm doing USA Triathlon, when I'm doing my thing, I always think back like, man, I would not be in this position in my life. I would not have the fortitude. I wouldn't have the people that I have in my life. I wouldn't be the man that I am, the father that I am, the friend that I am. Like, I wouldn't be anything that I am had I not lost my arm, right? It made me look in the mirror and change. It made me want to change. It made me look and say, hey, are you really the man that you want to be? Is this really the legacy that you want to live or leave behind when it's your time? And, you know, for me, you know, it made me reflect, and this became the best thing that could ever happen to me. So I'm wondering what your experience was.
And that's the choice that we make to frame it. Not all of us do it that way. So that, you know,
Right.
they call it post-traumatic growth or growth from an experience in a clinical sense, but it's the same thing as like I was expressing to you with my son at the baseball game. So if this had not happened and I didn't have all these life connections, even to this day with you, you know, I wouldn't have this moment of excellence. You know, I wouldn't have these
Right.
experiences. And same thing with me, is I'm blessed to raise 3 boys and whatever else I'm able to produce in society. If not for that, and at the end of the day, you know, trauma and all that, they'll know, you know, it's not like I'm telling them to do that. They're living their life, and that's all they know is the acceptance and overcome and keep moving forward. And for me, it was an experience for sure. It was multitudes of an experience, but I'm grateful that it happened to me because I could handle it. To be honest with you, that's how I feel. I'm glad it didn't happen to another corpsman next to me or somebody else. I'm glad looking back at it, especially, I'm glad I got hit, and I'm glad I was able to handle it. I'm glad those assets were there at the moment when I needed them, and I'm glad the people who were around me to help move me forward and embrace my goals were there. I'm grateful for the surgeons, the therapists. The guys were in the pool at 6 a.m. with me. Manny getting them up, running with me. You know, the therapists all over the world, they didn't have to do that extra work. And I think that's
Right.
exclusive to our military culture and our team that we had at BAMC, and that milieu of they committed to us and that whole recovery model, even as you'll hear later on from the prosthetists. So do they have to, you know, what do they have to do? They get out there at 6 a.m. and train with us, or they fit you with your arm and stuff. They're invested in us, and it's and they want us to succeed, and they want to be a part of that. So it's a blessing. So,
Well,
I
gentlemen,
appreciate this conversation, Michael. Well done.
We just have about 2 minutes. So I just want to ask you one last question before we wrap this segment up. I really appreciate all the conversation that you guys have added to this. This has been a really eye-opening way to have the conversation, you know, a very real, authentic way to have this conversation. So for those of us that haven't incurred this type of injury or loss of limb, one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to treat you as someone who's disabled. But I think oftentimes we want to get involved in helping. But I think many people struggle to find how. So we have, again, about 2 minutes. What would you say to a person like myself who is just wanting to show support and love, but wanting to do the right thing, not in a way that is offensive? We got a minute.
Well, yeah. So I'll just say real quick, and then I'll let Derek take it. My advice, in my opinion, is you know, the country, we're in weird times right now, and it's all about being a good human, right? So treat me, Derek, or anybody else that you see as you would want to be treated. We don't want to be treated with a disability, and because we don't. I do more with one arm than most men do with two, and that's how we want to be known. You know what I mean? And yeah, we're in a crazy time.
I love
so
that.
being a good human is what it's about, and that's respect across the board.
Yeah, I love that. I'd argue to anyone that Derek does more than one leg than most people do it too as well. So I love that. I've never heard that before. But Derek, wrap us up. We got about 20 seconds.
No, I got to honor Michael. I think he slayed it right there and give you guys back that time. But at the end of the day, just, you know, come alongside you and let's go fly fishing. Let's go do this or create a challenge. And just like you, and we did the different races and all over. All right, bro, let's do it. And just come alongside. And like I said, I want to end with Michael's statement: be a good human, man. That's on point. Just treat others like you want to be treated yourself, you know. So
very good.
Well done, Michael. Well played, sir.
Yeah, very well. Both of you, thank you so much for getting this conversation started. Very important conversation. When we come back, we will hear from the Sentinels of Freedom and their efforts to help severely injured veterans embrace higher education. So stay with us.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of you, of your families or your children, asking you to deploy, patrol, stay on watch, on point, asking you to put yourself in harm's way to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to bring you all the way home, to keep you secure, to have your back for the rest of your life. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs do whatever it takes to help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Find out how you can help at findwwp.org.
Welcome back. We want to welcome your questions or comments. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. Now let's continue our conversation about veterans and amputation with Mike Conklin of the Sentinels of Freedom and Army veteran John Wayne Walding. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you. And good to see you all, and good to see our Sentinels. We have 3 of our Sentinels on the program tonight, and I call them our barrel-chested freedom fighters. They're amazing young people, young men, and we do have some women too that we've helped over the years. We have about 650 veterans out there across the nation that have gone through our program and done very well. But I think to you veterans and Michael also, let me first say how proud we are of you and of your successes. What you're doing now in your lives is truly inspiring. And, working in your community, raising your families, living good lives. I'm sure your wives help you. But, all these things are what we dreamed when we started Sentinels of Freedom about helping you accomplish. And I always say, you carried 99% of the water in your successes. We may have helped you get there, maybe even a little faster, but it was because your motivation and drive and hard work, getting onto your careers, you embraced your future. And so congratulations. We really do love you guys and gals.
Well, thank you, Mike. And to our audience, many people, unfortunately, don't know about Sentinels of Freedom. Sentinels is an organization I'm proud to be a contributor towards. And I really hope that a lot of our community is able to see this show and realize that it takes a lot more than the efforts of DOD and the VA to really help severely wounded veterans transition back into the communities, get reemployed, and become productive citizens. So thank you, Mike, and a father of 3 Rangers. It took you to start an organization like Sentinels of Freedom. John, fill us in on your experience and how community efforts like Sentinels of Freedom have helped you recover from your injury.
Well, I'd like to start by saying when people ask me, how do you think a veteran or what the 2 words thank you mean to us, never underestimate the magnitude of what those 2 words thank you mean to a veteran. Because if you don't believe me, look up Mike Conklin and the Sentinels of Freedom and what they're doing for veterans. They are literally changing our lives. When I was shot in 2008 and became an amputee, I stayed in for a few more years, and at the time I was willing to wanting to transition from service. I didn't know what to do. Not one, I'm a disabled man. 2, I'm a father of, I think at the time it was 3. I have 4 kids now. We have cable now, so hopefully we won't have 5 kids. But I had a bunch of, I had a lot of responsibility on these shoulders and no idea what I was going to do on the outside of the military. And I was so fortunate to meet Mike Conklin through the CARE Coalition at SOCOM, and the impact that they've had on my family. I absolutely know that if it was not for Mike Conklin and the Sentinels of Freedom and the support that they've given my family and me, I would not be where I am today. a business owner that is living the best life that I ever thought I could live. Definitely after getting out of the military, and it's because of the support that they gave me.
Now, John, you live in Texas, if I understand correctly. So help us understand how you.
How could you tell? Is it the redneck talk and the deer behind my head?
A name like John Wayne, maybe,
Right. Yeah.
It fits in here in the Bay Area. You just don't see it very often.
Right.
So how did you find out about Sentinels of Freedom, and really help our audience understand how you got to the point in which you were able to accept help?
Yeah, so I found out, to answer your first question, I found out about the Sentinels of Freedom through the SOCOM Care Coalition. So I was stationed at the 3rd Special Forces Group out at Fort Bragg, and they have a unit that is designed to help those that get injured. And whenever I was wanting to transition, I reached out to them, and they said, "Hey, we got a great organization called Sentinels of Freedom. Why don't you, we're going to link you two up and see if it's a good fit." And so I did, and I told them what I was doing. I said, "Hey, I'm from Texas. I'd like to go back to Texas. No idea where. I'm from Groesbeck, which we have 3,500 people, but a $10 million football field." So I knew I wasn't going back to Groesbeck, but I was going, to Texas, and they literally flew my entire family to Dallas, where they did some market research of what are good areas to live in. And he said, "Look, this is a good area. Frisco's got great schools." And in one room, they had the chief of police, the dean of the Collin College, the Homeland Security director, the SWAT team commander. And here I walk in, and all I remember is Mike saying, "How are we going to help John?" Right. And so if that's not they give you a life scholarship. And at that moment when I realized that they genuinely are giving you a scholarship to where you can focus on yourself and not have to worry about all the ancillary, just question marks that come along with getting out of the military.
Yeah, I'd like to say just a couple things is that, yes, it takes putting together a team of good people in a community. And I think that's what we specialize in doing. But all of those people still remain very close friends with John and Sentinels of Freedom. And when I go down to Dallas, I visit with them. But the other part of it too is what John is doing in his personal life to help other people. He's very involved in public speaking at schools and Rotary clubs and things like that, creating awareness of the fact that, just like everybody talked about earlier, is hey, we're human beings. We may have had an injury, but we're moving forward. Don't feel sorry for us.
Right.
We've earned our place at the nation's table, and we want to move forward with our lives and careers. And yeah, we might ask you for some advice once in a while. And what we found is that almost everyone, I can't remember one person that has ever turned us down when we've said, "Hey, I've got a guy going to Dallas. He's from Texas. He's a Green Beret. He's got a family. We're going to try and get him started and get him down the path through transition." We never had anybody say, "No, we don't have time to do that. We're not interested." So
I want to pivot this slightly, if I could just interrupt, because we had a question from our audience, and because our audience's involvement is so important in this topic. How has the family been impacted by this? John, I don't know too much about your family, whether that be siblings or parents or extended family. How has your family been impacted by this? And Mike, how has organizations like Sentinels taken the family into consideration in regards to the healing from this wound or wounds?
To answer the question about how's the family being impacted by this, if this you're meaning my amputation, or this you're meaning by the support for Sentinels of Freedom?
I think both, John. I said injury, but it's necessarily not one injury. So how is your family impacted by the injury? But then, yes, how were they positively impacted by the support from Sentinel organizations like Sentinels?
Well, they're deeply impacted. This is not just who I am, it's who my family is. And when I was in the hospital at Walter Reed in 2008, we had to show my 2 and 3 year old children, my 3-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son at the time, who the Taliban was, because they thought that the army took daddy's leg. makes sense to a 3-year-old, right? Daddy left with the Army. He came back with one leg with the Army. And so they're deeply impacted by that. And then, throw the obvious physical side of, putting them on your shoulder and running through a park, or any type of, playing football, or some type of, like I said, the physical side, but the mental side as well. When daddy gets, or mama gets banged up in combat and comes back, they got the demons that they have to get over, and they have a lot of, emotional baggage. And for me, getting over that baggage was absolutely, coming right with my family and my demons inside. Which, I got sober as quick as I can. If there's any advice that I can get to veterans, after your injury, the best thing that you can do is be sober. Get yourself right, and I'm talking about off alcohol, off any narcotics and everything. Get right in that head, and once you do that, you can focus on being not just good, but being great, right? And the support that the Sentinels gave me allowed me to focus on myself, because you can't help others if you can't help yourself. And they just truly took care of the family. Again, they paid the expenses that we need. They didn't have to worry about getting my wife didn't have to worry about getting a job to pay for a hotel, or for an apartment or a home while I'm trying to do my thing. They've just been absolutely, a pivotal part of my transition.
One of my favorite stories, and I tell this often in my speeches across the country, is, well, first of all, let me say John has a very strong, loving wife and loving children, and has been a huge support for him. And it wasn't easy for him when he came home. He struggled a little bit, but they stuck with him, and his minister and his people around him, some of the people that we put him in touch with. But he told me a story of a man coming up and shaking his hand and saying, "Thank you for your service." And he felt a little bit funny about that. And he said he had to figure out a way to make this man feel at ease. And so he grabbed his hand and shook it, and he held on to it, and he put his left hand on his shoulder. And he looked him straight in the eyes with a big smile, and he said, "You're worth it." And he said, "What I hope is I've made this man feel less anxious about talking to a wounded veteran. I hope I've made a new friend. And I hope when he goes home, he says to himself, what did I ever do in my life to deserve that young man's sacrifice?" And I hope he goes back to his home and helps somebody else, maybe a veteran, maybe a school children, who knows? But I hope he uses that message to help people in his community. And that's one of the most profound things I have heard in the last 19 years from a veteran.
Well, I think
Mike,
that's
because he was worth it.
Yeah.
When you say, never underestimate the magnitude that thank you gets to a veteran, that's that validation that our sacrifice was worth it, right? To have great Americans like Mike and all the people at Citizens of Freedom that come and devote so many hours of their time and assets to just to say thank you. It's that validation that, all the holidays that I've missed, this leg that'll never grow back, the brothers of mine that are dead, it's worth that sacrifice, right? And that's the motivating driving factor to me, to where I'm not just going to be a citizen. I'm going to be a successful citizen, that has a business and will hire vets and give back to charity. I'm going to be not just a father, but an involved father that don't just come home, crack open a beer and watch Sports Center. I grab a bottle of water and I tell my kids, "How was your day?" Right? I'm not just a husband, but I'm a loving husband that does date night and actually, cares about making that relationship last forever. And it's because of that worth it.
Well, John and Mike, thank you so much. We're out of time. John, I want to honor you, sir. As you mentioned earlier, a true American born on the 4th of July, served your country in the military. But Mike, as well, you are a role model for how our communities and how our veteran service organizations can get involved, get their hands dirty, and help our severely injured veterans. Thank you, both of you, for being on this segment. Got to move on. Lots more to cover in tonight's very important conversation. When we come back, we will talk about the advances in modern prosthetics. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Through our RISE program, we're restoring independence and supporting empowerment for our severely wounded heroes through specially adapted custom smart homes.
Wow.
mobility devices, and adapted vehicles all across America.
The Gary Sinise Foundation and all the other partners who are part of this make it very clear that America does care for and about her warriors.
While our programs and projects have certainly made a difference in many lives, there's much more still to be done. And with the help of supporters like you, we continue to expand our mission of service to our nation's defenders, veterans, first responders, and their loved ones, because it's that commitment by all of us as Americans which keeps our country strong. Join us.
Welcome back. We're talking about veterans living with amputation. We want to welcome you to contact us with your questions. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, as some of you have tonight, or email veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. Now we will be talking with Kathleen Pelz and Rich Sire of Diablo Prosthetics and Orthotics. They are also joined by Navy veteran Manny Del Rio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, absolutely. Good to see some of you again. And we want to, again, pivot this conversation towards really the remarkable progress we've made through our healthcare system to restore a functioning life to veterans who have incurred these severe injuries. I want to start off with some pictures here, because we actually have some pictures from some of the original prosthetic devices. Kathleen or Rich or Manny, can you give us a little bit of understanding of what we're looking at here?
This would be your lane, like a pop-up quiz.
Yeah, early prosthetic devices, pretty crude, often made of wood, metal, leather, whatever raw materials might have been available at that time.
And these are Civil War era, is my understanding of what was available to those if they survived these significant battlefield or military injuries. Some of the very limited capabilities, you see the kind of traditional hook there. But we've come a long ways. And for guys like Manny, who I've played softball with, Manny's a heck of a softball player, but that's one of the probably least physical things that Manny does. Manny, give us a little bit of an idea of how you've taken your significant injury and advanced it to a pretty wild, I wouldn't say reckless, but a pretty adventurous lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Nate. Just before I begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody on the line. Hearing each of you, personal adventures and goals and, attributes of people that have impacted your life, just thank you for sharing. And, to the viewers, thank you, all the veterans that are out there, thank you and your families, for your service and, for supporting the channel. But for me, Nate, I think, and other people covered it today, is just feeling blessed and feeling thankful for the opportunities that we've been given now. And for me, one of those is just the medical healthcare now. I tell people, like the general public, that I feel very, very blessed that, I'm fortunate as a veteran to have any prosthetic like the new ones that, that are available for other veterans nowadays. And that, to me, I find that as a big, blessing, that I'm able to go to the VA and practically at this point choose any prosthetic that I can, that I can use for a specific sport or adventure. Like in the pictures, I think one of the biggest things is finding yourself, finding a place of comfort and a team of people. And for me, it's been through either workout groups with other veterans, being part of the USA Patriots softball team, and just really pushing the limit. And I think with the advancement of prosthetics, like Mr. Rich and Devil Prosthetics, is they push the envelope and the limit of these devices, and we're the customers that are pushing the boundaries, with those limits, with those devices. So I think it's that partnership, that we both have.
Thank you, Manny, and Kathleen and Rich. Manny just started the conversation. It's because of the work of people like you that make this possible, which is, I would imagine, a lot of hard work, a lot of science, a lot of advances in technology. Walk us through the daily life of an organization like yours that builds workable, functioning devices, prosthetics for veterans who are overcoming amputation.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it all starts with the individual, first meeting the amputee and crafting a specific device for them. It's a process, starting with a, personal assessment, really getting to know the individual. Like Manny, not everybody's doing tough mutters and stuff. So, we really try to build these things to the individual's needs to cater to what it is they actually want. And from there, it's an involvement of science and art, like you mentioned, Nathan. And we are, kind of the blue collar people of the medicine world, where we can work with our hands enough, but we still have that patient contact and interaction. So prosthesis has made many, many steps. Like Manny could tell you, it's a collaboration over a period of time where we work to meet certain biomechanical objectives, and it's the man meets machine interface. So it's really getting down to the individual who's using that device to be successful. As a prosthetist, you can see some of the sockets coming up. It's really the individual who makes this successful. The previous guest alluded to being optimistic and making a positive motion going forward. So Manny's doing all the work. Kathleen and I are just happy to help out and participate. So Manny, you can add more to that. It takes a lot on your end to put these things to a successful application day in and day out. He's really working hard, and we do our part too, but it's really pretty minimal compared to the amputee who uses this every day.
And some of the new technology has allowed, as you can see, some personality in some of the prostheses and the sockets, if you will. And that also allows the individual to express themselves to a certain degree with some of this art, if you will. And then the technology alone can be mind-boggling sometimes, where we've come from a hook with a leather socket, often designed by the individual wearing it. It started as a need, and people filled that need by making their own prostheses, and now you have all of these advanced carbons and titaniums and all of these new devices that allow people to do these activities like Manny and all of the other gentlemen here on the show. It's amazing to watch you guys.
Walk us through two things, if I might. Walk us through two things. The first one would be what the experience is like when you see a veteran, properly equipped for a piece of equipment and use it. And then secondly, I would imagine most companies build a product, and one of the worst things they like to see is a veteran or see a person or a customer break it and bring it back to fix it. But what's it like for you when you see a veteran like Manny, maybe come back with a prosthetic that's broken because he's been out there doing a tough mutter, and using it and actually putting it to full use?
Well, it can be pretty emotional, but more than anything, it's very, very satisfying to see something like that. Oftentimes we try to encourage people to try to break them, because that just means they're using it. And when somebody's using it, there's going to be problems with these devices, right? It's a human machine interface, so things aren't always a perfect fit for these users. So there's an element of modifications and adjustments over time. So as their activities become more aggressive, we can keep the prosthesis fitting well. So it's a nonstop involvement. And again, it's pretty satisfying just to be a part of it and see that in action, because it's pretty awe-inspiring to see somebody put that much effort into being successful. It really is.
Manny, is there any hopes that you have for how these devices might continue to advance? Being that you're very active, doing a lot of different things, is there something that you, I guess, I guess, a place that a prosthetic or a certain capability a prosthetic might be able to bring you for future adventures?
I think at this point, I mean, a lot of it comes down to having the most important thing that I always tell people, especially for anyone that's a new amputee, is a socket, which is the top portion, the carbon fiber fitting where your actual limb goes in. I don't know why I chose it as a limb, but that's the most important thing. That's your foundation. Having a comfortable fitting socket, that in itself is an art. Everything underneath your socket, from the actual physical prosthetics and the mechanisms and all the hardware, that's secondary. I think at this point, for me, honestly, with Derek on the line, I don't consider myself an amputee, because anyone below the knee, they make fun of you. So in theory, I just have a Band-Aid on my knee. But for me, below the knee, I think at this point, I mean, the progression will probably just continue to be maybe similar to the hands, where the hands have different sensors. I can see that being downrange. One of the things that they attempt to integrate is, with more of a sensor capability to moving individual toes, which I don't know to what extent, maybe just for different terrain, and if you're walking in different terrain, it might help you in that aspect. But other than that, though, I think just the socket fitting is key, and that without a comfortable socket, you can have the most expensive, fancy leg available, top of the line, but without a comfortable socket, you won't go further than, from your bedroom to the bathroom. And I just want to share a quick story with me, with Rich. Now I'm in LA. I know you can tell with the hat, the 2020 champions and everything. But prior to me moving back to LA, I was very, very hesitant. Honestly, I was almost having to pick between staying with Rich or coming down with my family. That's how close of a relationship, you build with your prosthetist, because once you find a solid, dependable, reliable, that's there to listen to you bicker, me, I didn't go to school for, 6-8 years or whatnot, I don't know anything about prosthetics. So anytime I would complain to Rich, I knew he understood where I was coming from, with my feedback. But once you have that relationship and trust with your prosthetist, it's hard to give that up, And I think that's something that people should be aware of, that these people, honestly, like, because of people like Rich and his company, you are the ones that allow me to get up in the morning and get the day rolling, get the things going. I'm able to go camping with my kids, go to the beach, and go out for a quick run, or participate, motivate other veterans, to stay inactive. And it's because of people like you guys, for you guys to put it in the education and time and work, to learning that craftship.
Well, we have about 30 seconds. Kathleen, Rich, anything that you want to add in regards to how people can get involved in these types of devices that can help those with amputations?
Yes, the Amputee Coalition of America is a great resource, and other online options as well, but I'd start there. Perfect. Kathleen?
I think, is as far as supporting the groups like Rich had mentioned, the groups like Mike has with the veterans groups, being able to be in touch with them and put them with the people they need to be with to help them, I think is really the most important part in supporting our veterans, and for all that they've given to us for us to be able to do this. And we appreciate everything.
Very good. Well, thank you to the three of you. Manny, so good to see you, and that you're staying active and your family's healthy. Rich and Kathleen, thank you for all that you do. We hope our conversation has shed some light on amputation in the veterans community. At the end of the show, we will give you some resources for veterans amputees. Now it is time to hear a veteran's voice. This month, Veterans Voices correspondent Shauna Springer talks with Army veteran Joe Meisch.
Doc, Shauna Springer here. I'm so pleased to bring to the studio today Joe Meisch, a 13-year Army veteran and the founder and CEO of Temple Massager, Inc. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Awesome to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
So let's get started by talking a little bit about your military background and history.
Sure. So as a 19-year-old kid with way too much energy and not near enough constructive places to put that energy, the Army afforded me a channel to properly exercise that energy.
It was a good fit for what you needed.
Yeah, it was. I was definitely in need of some, constructive channeling and disciplines. Was full of it, if you will.
Yes, yeah.
So,
what was your favorite part about your time in the Army?
I just, I got to learn a bigger picture of the world, frankly, and it brought me out of small town Novato, California. It introduced me to a wide variety of cultures, and I really actually thrived at being a soldier, and the military culture was great. And I love the discipline, and most importantly, the self-respect you learn and the respect you learn to give others.
Yeah. Joe, I've been thinking the past few weeks, especially, what would happen if everybody in our country had to serve for like a year, in terms of what I see in the tribe about that respect piece and people really learning to really respect and love people that have very different backgrounds. It's phenomenal. So I'm really glad that you kind of put that on the radar. And you've been working on some really interesting projects. And one that we wanted to focus on today was the Temple Massager. Can you tell us the story of how that came to be?
Absolutely. So at the end of my Army career, it was rather stressful. I was actually in the Army National Guard at that time, and was a full-time student at Sonoma State, and I was working a job and under a lot of pressure, and I experienced headaches, a lot of headaches, migraines in particular, tension headaches. And literally one day I'm coming back from an Allman Brothers concert, of all places, and I'm the designated driver, and I'm going down the road, and the lights from the oncoming traffic was irritating my eyes, and I started to get a little aura in my left eye, and I know I'm about to get a migraine when that shows up. So I thought, oh no, I got a car full of drunks, I'm the driver, and I had my sunglasses on the top of my head. And I literally pulled them off my head and just intuitively thought to massage around my eyes with my sunglasses as I'm holding them in this manner.
Yeah.
And I felt like relief. My eyes felt good. Of course, they wanted to close. And I just was trying to go into through my athletics at junior college in Marin, and I played some semi-pro baseball. I had a meditative ability from some of my athletics, and concentrating and focusing, and I just was doing deep breathing and massaging, and I literally thought to myself, wow, this feels good. I am going to buy a Temple massager tomorrow. No, you're not. Didn't exist.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, people get a lot of good ideas all the time, right? But the difference between a good idea and executing it to completion, huge, it's a world apart. So it's not enough to have the good idea. You've actually been the inventor of this and really developed it. What's the story of that piece of the journey?
So you're right on the money with that. And I think Edison said it best. Invention is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration.
Yeah.
So you're right on the money, and I've walked that walk, and I've learned it. So basically, I literally from that moment on thought that, hey, here's a scintilla of an idea. And through a long process of searching every possible format to see if it really existed or not, I found that it did not. And that at that point in time, go read a book, right? Again, falling back on my military training and experience, I knew how to learn. I was researching how to create a new device. How does this work? How do you get into this? Talk to a patent attorney. And so those were the initial steps that I took in recognizing what the path ahead of me was going to look like.
And that's interesting because you directly attributed that to your service, to skills that you learned in the service, which I think is such an important message, to think about how military service can prepare us to be entrepreneurs and leaders and innovators.
It was like just automatic. I mean, I was trained to adapt, improvise, and overcome as a combat engineer. You know, do more with less, get more done than the average person. And it started with me grabbing my glasses and massaging right around my eyes. And that was intuitive. I didn't even think about that, you know, so.
And I also know that, you know, there's this whole learning curve with patent attorneys and that whole process of discovery. And then there's the invention and the development. And then there's the very long perspiration phase of trying to get your idea adopted and socialized into systems of care and places where veterans are treated. And you've made real progress on that through some of your partnerships and conference presentations. Can you tell us where you're at with your device?
You know, this is exceedingly difficult, as you have already cited. And that is no exaggeration.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult that I really honestly didn't know if I had what it took. But my whole benefit that I could do this was because I served with two guys that gave all. One guy I couldn't save when I was in the Army Reserve, Private Curtis Young. He drowned during training. And then later down the line, after I was already out, my supervisor, Mike Ottolini, Sergeant First Class Ottolini, he was KA in Iraq. So fast forward, through those guys' loss, I found strength. Through their sacrifice, I found purpose, drive, and the ability to pierce through the unbelievably bad odds that I was facing.
I think it's awesome, your drive, and I think it's awesome where it comes from. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. We hope our discussion has shed some light on overcoming amputation. Here are some resources if you want to find out more. The Sentinels of Freedom helps severely wounded post 9/11 veterans complete their higher education. Reach them at sentinelsoffreedom.org or call 925-380-6342. The Gary Sinise Foundation provides a wide range of resources for injured veterans. Find them at GarySiniseFoundation.org. Wounded Warrior Project has a long history of providing services to our wounded veterans. You can find them at woundedwarriorproject.org or call 877-832-6997. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Veterans Affordable Home Program, serving those who have served us, ensuring the American dream for our veterans. The Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week, or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, so be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, February 8th at 7 p.m. We will talk about employment after service. Be sure to tune in. To all of our veterans and their families, thanks for watching.